Take a look at this standard textbook diagram of the human autonomic nervous system. For decades, medical science taught that our biology operated on a simple toggle switch divided into two distinct columns, a sympathetic state for stress and mobilization, and a parasympathetic state for rest and digestion. In clinical practice, this two-state model fails to explain the physiological reality of deep trauma. It offers no mechanism for the severe physical shutdown, dissociation, and complete immobilization seen in patients. The search for that missing mechanism points directly to cranial nerve X, the vagus nerve. Originating in the brainstem and wandering throughout the abdomen, it is the primary regulator of our internal organs. But studying the vagus nerve immediately presents a biological contradiction known as the Vagal Paradox. On one hand, high vagal tone is highly protective. It mediates respiratory sinus arrhythmia, a healthy mammalian marker of a resilient heart. Yet, this exact same nerve is also responsible for shutting down infant respiration, triggering sudden, lethal drops in heart rate, known as bradycardia and apnea. A single nerve cannot logically be the source of both our most vital health markers and our most dangerous biological shutdowns. Resolving this contradiction requires a model that accounts for the different evolutionary ages of the vagal branches. The paradox is resolved by an anatomical reality. There are two distinct vagal systems operating inside the body, not one. This anatomical distinction is the foundation of polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. It maps these dual vagal pathways to explain how our biology actually responds to the world. Instead of a simple two-state toggle between stress and rest, the human nervous system operates on a three-circuit evolutionary hierarchy. These three circuits evolved sequentially over millions of years. When we encounter safety or danger, our biology activates these circuits in a specific, predetermined order. Realizing that the autonomic nervous system has three distinct physiological states changes how we address trauma. It shifts the focus toward the neurobiological circuits that underpin all human behavior. To map these three circuits, we begin at the brainstem and torso, looking first at the oldest layers of our evolutionary biology. The oldest circuit is the unmyelinated dorsal vagus. Shared with all vertebrates, it originates on the floor of the fourth ventricle and travels downward to innervate the subdiaphragmatic organs, the stomach, liver, and intestines. In a safe environment, this dorsal circuit supports basic digestion and homeostasis. But when recruited for defense, it drives a massive biological slowdown, causing physical immobilization, a drop in blood pressure, and metabolic shutdown. Millions of years later, a second evolutionary circuit emerged in bony fish, the spinal sympathetic chain. This is the mechanism behind our classic fight-or-flight response. It acts as the primary driver of pure physical mobilization, accelerating the heart rate and flooding the muscles with energy to escape threat. When human beings face extreme danger, these two ancient circuits, sympathetic mobilization and dorsal immobilization, serve as our default biological safety nets. The third and final circuit is a uniquely mammalian evolutionary upgrade. Originating in the nucleus ambiguous of the brainstem, this is the myelinated ventral vagus. Coated in a fatty sheath for high-speed transmission, it regulates the heart and lungs above the diaphragm. This ventral branch is neuroanatomically linked to cranial nerves 5, 7, 9, and 11. These nerves stretch upward to regulate the muscles of the face, the throat, and the middle ear. Together, this interconnected anatomical network forms the social engagement system. Because this system is the newest part of our evolutionary hardware, it functions as a literal vagal brake. When the myelinated ventral vagus is active, it physically inhibits the older, lower defense circuits. It suppresses the mobilization of the sympathetic chain and prevents the metabolic shutdown of the dorsal vagus. Social engagement is a physical requirement for safety. The act of using our face and voice to connect is the exact biological process that stops our bodies from fighting, fleeing, or freezing. The switch that controls this entire hierarchy is called Neuroception. This is the nervous system's subcortical evaluation of acoustic and visual cues in the environment. Neuroception evaluates the pitch of a voice or the tension in a face and triggers a biological state shift reflexively. It occurs a low conscious awareness before the brain formulates a conscious perception of danger. Look at this vertical hierarchy graphic. When neuroception detects a threat, the vagal brake fails, triggering what we call the dysregulation spiral. In the first stage of the downshift, the system drops out of the gold ventral state of subtial engagement and falls into the red sympathetic tier. The body mobilizes for panic or anger, and blood flow immediately begins to retreat from the frontal lobes. If mobilization fails to resolve the threat, the system collapses completely. It plunges into the bottom, blue tier, dorsal vagal dominance. Blood flow to the cortex is restricted, resulting in apathy and withdrawal. Clinical observations of chronic stress and PTSD reveal that the nervous system has moved past mobilization and landed in a state of dorsal immobilization. You can observe this dorsal dominance through specific biological markers. The patient will present with wandering, fibromyalgia-like pain, a flat and monotone vocal prosody, and a deadpan facial expression caused by the dysfunction of cranial nerve 7. The dysregulation spiral is a predictable, sequential biological downshift. It degrades our nervous system from mammalian connection toward older defensive circuits. This downshift explains why cognitive interventions, like telling a traumatized client to think rationally, rarely work. In a state of sympathetic panic or dorsal shutdown, the physiological platform for social behavior is offline. Because these state shifts are driven reflexively by subcortical neuroception, a practitioner's words are secondary to their presence. The practitioner's first tool is their own regulated autonomic nervous system. We can observe the biological mechanics of this process, the co-regulation loop, in this split-screen visualization. When a practitioner's social engagement system is active, cranial nerve X regulates their larynx. They output clear biological safety signals using a melodic vocal prosody. As those sound waves enter the client's ear, a mechanical reception occurs. The melodic frequency of the therapist's voice causes the stapedius and tensor tympani muscles in the client's middle ear to physically alter their tension. They tighten to filter out low-frequency noise and allow the frequencies of human speech to pass through. Therapeutic co-regulation relies on a literal mechanical acoustic event. The sound of safety provides the physical input needed to begin shifting the tension in the client's body. Once the middle ear tunes to the frequency of human speech, that acoustic signal travels up the cranial nerves, activating the client's nucleus ambiguus in the brainstem. This precise neurobiological activation is the input required to engage the client's vagal brake. The physiological results are observable. The ventral vagus suppresses defense responses, heart rate variability improves, and facial muscles naturally soften. For clients stuck at the bottom of the dysregulation spiral, this acoustic biology provides a direct route back to safety. Effective therapy recognizes that physiological safety is the necessary platform for connection. By leveraging the acoustics of safety, practitioners provide the biological input needed to restore the function of the social engagement system.